On August 26, 1920, Congress enacted the 19th Amendment, a women's right to vote. Women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, and Lucy Stone were monumental in allowing women to have the same simple rights as men. For nearly 80 years leading up to that decision, its opponents argued that politics would simply debase, defeminize, and destroy the family. President Taft even said he opposed suffrage because women were too emotional. He was quoted saying, "On the whole, it's fair to say that the immediate enfranchisement of women will increase the proportion of the hysterical element of the electorate." Hysterical, huh? Okay, guy. In the years since those women came forward to give women the same citizen rights as men, women have blown the roof off of societal norms. Meet 3 generations of politically active women, the oldest females of their generations: Dr. Mary Alice Herzog, Dr. Jean Herzog, and me, Kaitlyn Herzog. The 3 of us go against every stereotype the patriarchy has thrown at us since 1920. We might not be Stanton, Anthony, or Stone, but we're definitely not doing the norm.
Mom, how old were you? How old was the voting age when you were young?
It was 21. And I remember voting for the first time in the 1952 election of Dwight Eisenhower.
Wow.
For the presidency.
Dare I say that makes you sound old?
And I am old.
Ending a 20-year control by Democrats, Eisenhower was the Allied commander who had just won the war. And like many young people, Grandma voted the same way as her parents. Her allegiance to the Republican Party started with her father. Like many women, her understanding of politics was based on how much the working men told them. Media played a big part in this, or lack thereof, I should say.
Newspapers, that's all we had. And then we had passé news, which would mean that if you'd go to the movies on a Saturday afternoon, you would see footage.
Propaganda kinds of things.
A lot of propaganda. So you really weren't made aware of a lot of things. You just kind of went with the flow.
Grandma grew up in a middle-class family in the Milwaukee suburbs. Like the statistics that still stand firm today, that leads to voting conservative. A natural listener, caregiver, and confidant, she was just how women were supposed to be in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But she wasn't interested in being a housewife. She had a knack for learning.
I personally left suburbia to go back to graduate school because I found the suburban women too quiet. They weren't interested in the things I was interested in. In fact, some accused me of going back to school to get away from my children.
See, she and my grandpa couldn't have just had 2 or 3 children. Their deep-rooted Catholic upbringing told them that 10 was a good number. 10. Bobby, Mikey, Jeannie, Johnny, Peter, Mary, Mark, Margaret, Joey, and Tommy. 7 boys, 3 girls, all after she graduated from college. Then she went on for her doctorate.
Being the mother of 7 sons, I began to look at the ridiculousness of the Vietnam War. I could not go along with that because I didn't want one of my sons to ever be in a dangerous position because of some cooked-up war. So little by little, I left the Republican Party, or as I'm fond of saying, it left me, because it no longer represented even the smattering of information that I had. So I adopted this very, very different, more compassionate, more loving, more caring, more accepting role, and never looked back.
My Aunt Jean and I have grown up through civil rights movements, equal rights movements, a few wars, and a rise in domestic terrorism. Year after year, Jean realized she wasn't doing anything for herself.
I used to vote Republican when I was married to my first husband, Tony. And I believe that I did it to be on the bandwagon. You know, the bandwagon you talked about years ago. because he voted Republican, and I wanted to align with him, and I didn't know enough. And this was back in the 80s. And I got divorced, and suddenly I started thinking for myself, and I started to want to know more.
It's Election Day, 2018. The midterm elections. Arguably the most important and detrimental midterm elections of my lifetime. The midterms are notorious for low voter turnout, but polling places flooded with voters on Tuesday. With various social matters on the ballot, it's indicative of why people were coming out in droves. You only know what your parents tell you, and in my situation it's a little different because there's plenty of television, plenty of ways for me to get information in 2004 when I first voted, but you just feel like, okay, well, I trust this person, I'm going to assume they have the right way of thinking, and you vote. You pick up on those tendencies. What you hear on a regular basis is what you assume is the correct thing. And then as you get older and you have friends that are gay and you have, friends that aren't from here, you all of a sudden start going, oh my God, what was I thinking? It's important to vote for matters that affect you and for those who need your support the most.
Well, the social issues are very important to me. Being very aware of human behavior, being a retired clinical psychologist, I know of people's problems, and I know of their joys, and I know of their happiness, and of course, it's always been my goal to try to bring as much happiness into people's lives, or to allow them to bring happiness into their lives. So why would I even think for a moment to be voting against something that could possibly be helping them?
Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, and Lucy Stone led the way for the three of us. All of us. And in the years since, we've been bombarded by a relentless stream of information, spewing New Age propaganda and true journalism. While it may seem easier to just ignore it, those three women worked tirelessly to ensure our voices were heard. So don't back down like women of the 50s. Take a page out of Mary Al's book. Keep learning.
Oh, I wouldn't think of not voting. It would be my civic duty.